here for what I do see as an important moment for us at Trinity Church. We have done a lot of reflecting over the last couple of years. Those of us who were able to be pilgrims to the Holy Land, on what on earth can we do to respond to this experience we've had? Experience of so much beauty and profundity and spiritual inspiration and building community, all of those things. But also seeing so much of the tragedy and the complexity of what life in Palestine and Israel is all about. And so our community of pilgrims from the first go-around, we've got a whole fresh new wet behind the ears set of pilgrims coming up. But this group that came back somehow felt committed to being responsive to their experience, to the holiness and beauty and the tragedy and need for healing. And instead of jumping in like cocky Americans typically do and make a plan and find a program and fix it up, they've been in a serious process of discernment for a while of how can we as a community support what's happening over there and be responsive to it. So you're seeing the fruit of that now, a chance to hear about a wonderfully creative program. No one's got the fix on how to rectify things in the Holy Land, but a lot of people are trying very important endeavors to create pathways toward reconciliation. So today we get to hear one of those wonderful pathways and meet some people who are involved in it. And I want to thank Meg Ackerman for being the one who's pulling it together today, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Sam. It's so nice to see so many of my cousins here today. For those of you who may not know why I have so many cousins, Bob and I, my husband, went with the group of Trinity to Jerusalem and Palestine, Israel and Palestine last year and a half ago. We got along so well together and we bonded so tightly as a result of this amazing experience that we all declared ourselves to be cousins forever. As Sam just mentioned, since our return from that pilgrimage, we wanted to stay engaged and to continue to educate ourselves and others in the parish about the complexities of and the hopes for this part of the world, which is important to all members of the Abrahamic faith traditions. Toward this end, during the past year and a half, we've sponsored several speakers who've shared with us their hopes and dreams for the future. And we've also gathered together to watch films created by Israeli and Palestinian producers to broaden our perspective. It's not always easy to be optimistic about the future of this part of the world, and that is why we are so excited today to present a program which is all about hope. Hope that by bringing together Jewish, Christian, and Muslim youth and their families to develop an interfaith community equipped with knowledge, skills, and relationships, that a new culture of peace and understanding can be built. Kids4Peace was started in Jerusalem in 2002. In 2009, Peggy Stevens, an educator with 35 years of experience with both middle and high school students, as well as with teacher training programs, joined a group of her friends from an interfaith book group, the Daughters of the Abraham, and they traveled to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, Peggy repeatedly came in contact with people associated with Kids4Peace. They told her about the revolutionary impact of their program, as well as the challenges the group faced. Peggy was so moved by this experience, she returned home to Massachusetts, determined to use her background in education to develop Kids4Peace chapter here. It is my great pleasure to introduce Peggy Stevens, who indeed in 2011 was successful in establishing the Boston chapter. Peggy will share with you some more about Kids4Peace, and then she will introduce student participants in the program who will be able to fill you in on the details of what Kids4Peace has meant for them. After the student presentations, there will be time for questions and discussion. Thank you all for coming. We're especially glad that so many members of the Trinity Youth Group are with us as well today. We hope that after this presentation, There may be some of you who will want to join us as honorary cousins in support of a program such as this. Please join me in welcoming Peggy Stevens.
Thank you so much for having us this morning. It's a great honor to be here here at Trinity. And I'd like to just briefly first introduce the youth that I brought with me. We have first Eliana. Go to stand up, Eliana, who goes to Jewish day school in Sharon. She's from Sharon, goes to Jewish day school in Sharon. And Iyad Al-Ghul, who is Muslim and goes to Boston Latin School. Franz is Christian, and Franz, I know you're from Jamaica Plain, but I actually don't even know what school you go to.
Oh, Pierce School in Brookline.
Pierce School in Brookline, okay. So, Kids4Peace, yeah, it's about kids, and as Meg was saying, I had the same experience as a lot of you, but I was on an interfaith trip, and our guide, who specializes in interfaith trips, started Kids4Peace in 2002 in response to the fact that at the Second Intifada, where the hostilities had escalated between Israelis and Palestinians, that the children had no chance of meeting one another anymore. As some mothers have said to me, growing up, she said, I may be Palestinian, but the baker on the corner in Bethlehem was Jewish. Like, we knew each other, we lived together. She said, I can't convince my kids that Jews are anything but enemies because the only Jews they have ever met are soldiers. And so Henry Karst, who's an Episcopalian, who raised his family, he went to Israel when he was 18 and stayed there. He's in his 60s now. He just felt, he didn't try to start a movement, he just wanted to get kids out of there and have a chance to meet one another. So the Episcopal Diocese of Houston actually welcomed the kids, and Kids4Peace got started. And the way it's grown now, there is a chapter in Jerusalem, and then there's about 5 or 6 chapters in the United States, all pretty much started by people like me who went on a trip with Henry. And then as I tell people, start getting a pit in your stomach instead of enjoying the trip, because you're like, there's 150 families they're turning away, and I should do something. And of course, I wasn't, like all of you, I wasn't sitting around with time on my hands hoping something would drop in my lap so that I could keep busy. But instead, it just was like, I have an interfaith network of women through these book groups, and I'm an educator, and I have friends in a camp in New Hampshire who I know would really welcome the opportunity to have children here. And so I just got started with friends and people I could convince, and having talks in different places. And so we started. I went on a trip in 2009. We started our first group, which Ian is part of. He's 16 now. He started when he was 12. So I'm going to have the kids do a little storytelling first about the program. Let me just tell you the one basic idea is that kids come from Jerusalem, Muslims, Jews, and Christians in equal numbers to each chapter. And there they spend 2 weeks together with Muslim, Jewish, and Christian kids from the local area. So in Boston, we have the kids come, and they each are with our 12 kids. Then they go back to Jerusalem. What's important and what attracted me to Kids4Peace is the first year they come is only the first of a 6-year program. Last year, about 70, 80 kids came who were 12 to different chapters. 100% of them are still meeting together. Just one example over there is on a terrible weekend in November when the rabbis were murdered at prayer. That weekend, 100 teenagers, Muslims, Jews, Christians, got on the bus and went on a trip the way your kids went on a trip last week, right? As if they were just a church youth group or a temple youth group. And sometimes you just think, is that possible? Right? That the kids just get on a bus and go on a weekend retreat? But somehow they're doing it. And so that very weekend with escalating violence and tension, they were still meeting. Last summer, all the parents sent their kids. A week before they arrived with us, we didn't even know if they would come. The Tel Aviv airport was closed. But all those parents sent their kids with the enemy, nonetheless, to get started. So there are about 400 people involved, families, kids in Jerusalem who have lots of activities together. They're forming an alternative community, and that's what this is about. So we're going to start off with, actually, why don't you go over here, the three of you, and you can just sit on this bench, and Franz is going to start us off. Oh no, Eliana's starting us off, I'm sorry. And if you maybe stand there and do the slides for Eliana. Oh yes, over great.
Well, so for me, Kids4Peace, like, the thing I love about Kids4Peace is, like, for me, it's a great way to, like, a lot of times it's hard to learn about someone else's religion without feeling like pressured or like convinced, like, to try to like believe in something that you don't feel comfortable in. But like in Kids4Peace, it's all about like learning and like accepting other religions without like feeling like you have to like switch religions or believe in something that doesn't feel right to you. So like that's something I really loved about Kids4Peace. And something else I really liked about it was that also I connected more with my own religion. Like I'm Jewish and I just switched to a public school, so I don't get like as much Jewish education. But like in Kids4Peace, when I'm explaining to other people what Judaism means to me, it also like for me it makes it more powerful to myself. Like, and I think about it more, and it makes me connected to my own religion even more, which I really like love about Kids4Peace. So that's like something that's really important to me, and that's why I really love Kids4Peace.
Why don't you just read that slide out loud?
So he lives in Jerusalem, he likes soccer, he's 12 years old, and he's Christian. He lives in Boston, he likes soccer, he's 12 years old, and he's Muslim.
Oh, you should just note that this is Iaz, who's here now, so
So in Kids4Peace, we have something called Peace Pals, which is like before Kids4Peace starts, you get an email from someone who's in like Jerusalem or Palestine, and they're a different religion. So I got a Muslim girl, and we talked like before Kids4Peace because we were both kind of nervous, and we got to feel comfortable with each other. And then we became friends before Kids4Peace. So when we were there, we already had a friend, and we bunked together, and it was nice to already have someone, like, and you got to meet someone in the same situation before you even got there. Nicole comes from Boston, Abigail comes from Jerusalem, one is Christian and one is Jewish, and so that's like an example. They could be peace pals, and they would like live in the same room, and like they really get to connect. Jessica's from Boston. They had never known a Muslim until she met her peace pal, Yara from Jerusalem. 24 kids, 12 from Jerusalem area, 12 from Boston area, and all our Kids4Peace. So like it's really cool just to like also they come from a totally different they come from totally different like areas. So you also get to learn about like their culture. It's not just about their religion. You get to like learn all about where they come from and how it's like to live there, and you get to like have conversations and like without feeling uncomfortable, and it just like makes a safe environment. And it's also great that it's in a camp setting because it takes away a lot of like the uncomfortable things that you might feel like just talking to someone, but like you're at camp, so you're doing activities and you're having fun together, and you're always with each other, like you're eating together, you're cleaning together. So like it really takes away all that like uncomfortableness and all the stress that like of meeting new friends, because you're just in that area, and it's such an accepting like surrounding, so you don't feel any like stress or uncomfort.
They have 3 days in Boston at the end of the program, and the very last day before they go back to Jerusalem, Trinity has invited us to bring the kids. So they'll go to the Roxbury Mosque on Friday afternoon. They're going to Temple Israel for Shabbat services on Friday night, and they'll be coming here Sunday morning, and then later in the day be heading back to Jerusalem. So that picture of like 24 kids, you'll get to meet our new group, our 2015 group, personally if you're around that weekend. And Franz is also, Eliana and Franz are both 7th graders who were in the group last summer. So we thought we'd bring you some kids fresh from the experience to hear from Franz, right?
Since it was a summer camp, we didn't just have, like Eliana said, it wasn't just a blank space of trying to make friends in a challenging way. We had many, many different activities, like such as swimming, sports, and crafts that we got to do together, and it all made it, like, everything a lot easier for people to become closer. One of the activities we did that made the most close was there was somebody who came to do a movement lesson, and basically one of the games we did was we would get a number and one person would go into the random, we were all in a line, one person would go into the middle of the room and make a pose, and people would lead off of that. The first time we did it, she played some pretty sad music for us, and we all started to create a scene that wasn't meant, I don't think the kids noticed until there was a finished scene that it had become a war scene. And it was a way to get past what we know is going on in the Israel-Palestine area without having to actually challenge and tackle that conversation. We got to get that through an activity and a fun way to be together, and that made everyone a lot closer. Other activities we did were canoeing. We played a lot of sports, like soccer was one of the main things, and basketball. We also played capture the flag and other fun games that we run around in. This was the dining area at Mira Vista, which was the camp that held us. As you can see here, people were already very connected and happy. Here we ate food together in our tables with the rest of the camp that we stayed with, and it was more of a bonding experience with the rest of the camp because we didn't have much time with them. We were mostly alone, so this was a big part of it.
So another part of Kids4Peace that's a really big part is our interfaith learning. So we want to learn about other people's religion so we can feel comfortable, because sometimes you don't really understand other people's religion and it just makes an uncomfortable block. When you get to learn and understand other people's religion, it makes it more easy to be around them, and just you understand their point of view. So some of the things we did was we each religion prepared a service. The Christian group did a service on Sunday. The Jewish group did a service on Friday night, and the Muslims also did a service on Friday. And we all got to observe the other religions, but without participating. So we didn't feel uncomfortable in any way, but we just got to observe and understand their religion and where they're coming from. We also it shows over there. We made a challah, which was really fun. Because I know I used to do that every day in school when I went to a Jewish school, but it didn't have to be like that. It was just a really fun experience for everyone to get to play with their challah, and it tasted really good, and we got to eat it on Friday night. And so that's this, you can see this picture. That's where the Christians did their service. You can see the Muslims doing their service. We also got to see a lot of different things, even that weren't structured. When we went on a really pretty hike one day, and we got to see the Muslims do their prayer. You can see that's them doing their prayer on the top of the mountain, which was really beautiful. And every night also and every day the Muslims and Jews could each do their prayer, and we had a space where they were allowed to go and do their prayer and feel connected. And also there's an activity where people put down objects from their religion, and people would pick them up, and someone from that religion would explain what it meant in their religion and what it was used for. Yeah, right over. Oh, this is, you can see the Jewish people are lighting their candles on Friday night. And this is another picture of the Christian service. So this is where everyone would pick up each person could pick up an item, and someone would explain what it meant to their religion and what it was used for.
So again, as I'm going to say, it wasn't just a camp for peace, it was also a summer camp. We had a lot of different not games, but like gatherings and things we do. Every morning we would hike up after breakfast. Before breakfast, sorry. We would hike up to a church or
It's an outdoor chapel.
outdoor chapel. And we would sit in a big circle and we would have a conversation with someone, with a random person around the circle, like, what is peace? Or what do you, when you think of Kids4Peace, or when you think of peace, or when you think of an area in Israel and Palestine, what do you think of? And every day it would be a different thing that we would have, and it was a very interesting experience. We would do a lot of, we had shirts that we would wear every day and off, so we'd have a shirt that would say peace, salam, shalom, in the actual languages, and then we'd have a color and we'd have one shirt that said Kids4Peace. As you can see, this is a picture of people who are Jewish doing their prayers or reading from the Torah, and it wasn't just them in many ways they had their own solitary place where they would do it, but sometimes they would read out in the open, and it was very cool to observe people doing things like that. This quote, "At camp we experience a new way of life, living together in peace." It really means to me how exciting and interesting it is to meet another person from a different place in the world. They don't know how we live life, and we don't know how they live life, especially people coming from a place where there's a lot of war and conflict. It's just very cool to see how people connect and be together.
So give a little overview of what happened after the first year.
Okay, well, first I would like to say, there was a picture of me earlier with my Peace Pal, and I might not have seemed so excited or happy. I promise you, I was excited and happy. I loved being there. It was my best time of my life. I was just an awkward 12-year-old child. So, as you can see, I wasn't the greatest at smiling. Well, at camp we had this song that pretty much every year learned. I'm not really going to sing it, but those are the lyrics right there. Those are the lyrics right there where usually the campers or maybe the counselors, they would say the first line, and then everyone else would repeat that line and then go on to the next line, and we would go on and do that. And the song was pretty nice. Even though sometimes we sang it and it didn't click in our minds what we were saying, it subconsciously made us more connected. And then at times where you realize, oh wait, this is a beautiful thing. We're singing all together about we're doing the right thing. We're trying to what's the word? We're trying to give off a sense of peace. We're trying to spread peace throughout the world and within each other. We're trying to make, even if it's just a few children, to them, doing this means the world to them. Even though there's a whole 7 billion other people in the world, you can still change some people's lives. Yeah, that's what we aim to do. So the continuation program, I've been in a few years. I'm actually going to be a counselor this summer in Houston, which is going to be really exciting because I went to Houston. It was real fun. Where it first started off, it's the biggest chapter. So the first year, since everyone's 12 years old or maybe even 11, there is some dialogue, but it's usually just connecting in a fun way. But then afterwards is where you get into the real deep stuff, the real controversial, even more connecting and all that. So throughout the year, usually once a month, maybe even at a place like this, like we're doing now, we would get together and we would do whatever was planned by Peggy or our other director Matt. Whatever was planned for that day, which could involve team building, cooperative skills, activities and all that usually. Some religious learning at times, usually dialogue pretty much every time we met together. It was usually new each time, but sometimes if we were with the younger years, we would maybe have encountered that dialogue before, but then we could contribute more because we talked about it before. And then at times there's also community service, which
Hans, go ahead.
yeah. So this is one of the times where we had a Kids for Peace overnight. We would go to the school in Cambridge called the Cambridge Friends School, and we went there like on Saturday, let's say, and we spend most of the day there, and then we sleep there, and then the next morning we do some more activities, and usually about halfway through the day is that when we would wrap up and then go home. And this is a picture of one of the overnights. I can't remember when this was, but there's a good few kids from 2011, my group, and 2012, and I think some 2013. Yeah. So, for example, these few people right here were, these few people right there were like with me. There's me in the background, and then some of the kids on the bottom were like 2013. Some kids were 2012. It was pretty cool because you get to really connect with the people you meet in like your camp experience. But then, because of that, you don't usually get to meet the other kids until you go to things like this. So I've connected a good bunch with the kids I went to camp with, but then I also get to connect with the kids from the younger years, like Franz and Eliana and all these wonderful people. This was also at Cambridge Friends School in the overnight, where we were doing, I think, a game in the gym. But first some instruction and some dialogue, and yeah, this was a pretty fun thing. The last overnight where we had to stack cups. It was a competition. We were all in like lines for teams. There's a couple teams. I'm like on the other side where we would have to take the cups. There's like 2 piles or 1 pile. We would then have to stack them all like you see here. And then once you're done, you have to restack them and back into one big pile, and then press the buzzer. And then the next person in your team would go and have to do the same thing, and then repeat until your whole team is done. When your whole team is done, that means, well, if you're first, that means you win. And it was pretty fun, pretty intense. I don't remember who won. This, I'm not sure.
Well, that was just one. We had a theme on our overnights, and one theme was learning more about Jerusalem, and actually we ended up going to that IMAX film, some of you might have seen, about Jerusalem that they had for a while at the Museum of Science. It was amazing. It was shown by 3 teenagers, one from each religion and their point of view. So they got to see that film. But we were actually having a dialogue session with the older kids where we had a Harvard student who was Israeli and had already served in the Israeli army. And he considered himself a peacemaker, and he came and talked to the kids about his amazing story about his parents' best friend and family friend getting literally blown up the night before the girl's wedding, the daughter's wedding, and then him like hating Arabs, but then going to a peace camp in South Africa and having get assigned a roommate who was Palestinian. Anyway, he had an amazing story and then turned into such a peacemaker. And we also had one of our parents who is Arab Israeli, and she talked to the kids. So she's an Arab but a citizen of Israel, and talked to the kids. She's doing a postdoctoral work at Harvard, but talked about her experiences, good and bad, discrimination, things like that. And so they were having that serious conversation. The younger kids were learning about Jerusalem, and this is actually, it's a little hard to see, but they were learning about Jerusalem. They were making a little model. So there's the wall, the Wailing Wall, or and there's little rabbis praying, and we're kind of showing the kids where we're making all these little tiny miniatures to understand better, like when the kids had talked about the West Bank, whatever, what did that actually mean? What are the contested areas? So they were actually making a little model with 7th and 8th graders. So we do sometimes, now that we have, this year we have 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, even a few 11th graders. So we might have different activities going on for the different age group, but that photo didn't come out so well. But anyway, it was really fun making all this little miniature as a way of trying to understand, begin to introduce to like the 8th graders some of the politics of it. When we start off, it's more just about friends and breaking down stereotypes, and then as we get older, let's show that one slide, and then I want to talk a little bit about leadership.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of,
Yeah.
they're cooking at a homeless shelter in front of it. And this is the conference that we lead. So you can talk a little bit about the Interfaith Youth Conference.
Okay, so that was in March, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in March where we've been organizing it for a while, and it's what you would expect at a conference. We would get together, we have a bunch of people show up, usually people like around middle school, and then some, like a good few adults too, like some peace groups and interfaith groups and traveling groups throughout the world trying to figure out what this is. And so we prepared workshops, discussions, some games, and this was, I believe, some prep work. Or was this one of the workshops?
This is one of the dialogue sessions. So this is the first time we've actually opened up and invited other high school kids. We invited kids, people from 14 congregations, 4 mosques, 6 temples, 5 churches, something, to come. So we're trying to have influence over more people now that we're a little better established. So this is our first time. The dialogue sessions were led by our kids who were trained in dialogue. So this is so the people that backs to us are 2 of our Kids4Peace kids leading a dialogue with a small group.
Yeah. And so just in case some people don't exactly know what a dialogue is, it's not a debate where you try to, you're not trying to persuade people of your point. It's really just a talk and everyone being more equal with just some dialogue leaders trying to just keep structure to the talk and make sure it flows well and just make sure there's no disrespect, make sure everything's nice, to pose questions for thought, all that. So everyone, we go through the process and everyone would share something, their personal connection or their thought, and we wouldn't talk over each other or something like that. We would wait till everyone's done and listen to them, and then we wouldn't have to debate with them about whether they're right or wrong. Then you just go on and then you share your idea and you work together. Usually at the end there's a bigger question you have to answer or solve, and you work together and you try to solve that based on what you heard that day, past experience, any given experience, information. And so these, for the first time, were led by children, not counselors or directors. And it was a really cool thing to watch because usually you don't have kids leading other kids in a serious discussion. So this is the end of the slideshow, but the leadership program, which is what I've gone through and why I'm going to be a counselor at 16. After a few years, when you're around 15, 16, some 14-year-olds actually went to it in Vermont. There's a leadership camp with Jerusalem Peacemakers who hosted us in this really nice place in Vermont. It was a small place. It's not like the usual big camps we go to, and it was a small place where we all slept in and talked in. There's less games and more so dialogue because it's the leadership. We've all grown up, we've all had our experience with Kids4Peace, and we're all more mature, so we talk a lot more. Every day, for a lot of the day, there was there was presentation, there was talks, there was dialogues, there was some rest, usually in between some things, which was actually a really nice thing to have some rest. Because you spend the whole day talking or doing something. Then there was lunch, and it was also well organized. It was also nice actually being up in Vermont. Then at night you can see, like, you're away from the city with the big lights, so you can look up and you can actually see the stars. There's a lot of them. It looks nice. You're out more in the, I wouldn't say more wilderness, like out in the camp in the middle of the mountains, but you're not in a city. So usually with the city kids, they're out in somewhere which is really nice. It's like a getaway. We can get away for like 2 weeks. So usually with every talk there was something new. It was like a lot of information and process to gain, a lot of new learning because there was a lot more skills and tools being taught for our toolkit to use for peace building and leadership, so peace leadership. And we were trying to, everyone was trying to, they were trying to get all the kids to be comfortable with leading and specifically towards peace, but that also gave just good leadership skills in general. I know they're actually useful to me. In my school, at Boston Land School, you have to do a few things. promoted people's public speaking, being able to talk in front of people, trust building skills, and generally dialogue or just conversational skills to make sure if you're going to have a serious discussion with somebody, you don't want it to just be back and forth yelling at each other's faces or something controversial. You have something like actual structure to a conversation, which is actually really nice to have when trying to promote peace and or anything else that's controversial when you're trying to talk about it. You don't want it to just be a back and forth. So the leadership camp was at times emotional, at times, at one time there was a fight that broke out, but we eventually got through it because it is with kids from the Palestine and Israel area, especially this past summer, there was this, the Gaza war. So kids were all worrying about what was going on with their families and what was happening back home, and then there was just some, like mentioned before by Peggy, there was just some like conflict where kids did at times want to talk from the Israel-Palestine area, or they were just afraid, or they had some built-in tension just because of the conflict going on. But so that at one point led out to a yelling fight between two kids, a few kids actually, but we got through it. It was just a tough moment, but we all worked through it because we like that's what was the point of the camp, was to be able to get skills, to be able to work through tough situations like that. And so,
I just want to talk about it. So we have, I think that's a quick overview from the kids' point of view. You're certainly welcome to have questions. You can ask any of them, ask me. There's obviously a lot more we can talk about, but what are your interests?
How many Kids4Peace groups are there in the United States?
So this summer, their kids will be going to 5 camps. Some of the programs don't have camps every summer, some are in bigger places like Boston, and some have been places like Burlington, Vermont, where there's like one small group of Iraqi Muslims and one temple, so the fundraising is a little harder. So there's about 8 groups, but at any given summer there's about 5, and there are usually around 70 kids come to the United States and start the process, about 70 each summer. Our camp, we could, in some ways, have more kids. The camp that we go to, which is Camp Mara Vista up in, it's near Ossipee, New Hampshire, they don't have room for us to be bigger, so that's one of the things that we grow that we have to look into. They've been a very supportive camp and don't charge us a lot of money for coming, but the building that they have for us, they're very full. It's the kind of camp that people sign up for, September for the following summer, and so it's kind of full. So we could, I think now that we're established, we could have a bigger camp, but we don't actually fit in that building, so that's one of the growth issues that we're faced with. But there's about 70, 80 kids coming, and it's still turning away another 70, 80 families, sort of for capacity issues over that would like their kids to become part of Kids4Peace. Yes?
Well, also, I just want to say, throughout this, we've been talking about, people's religion and about, how cool it is to, understand their religion. But also, for me, I didn't, know, for a while, I didn't even know Francis' religion, and it didn't matter. Because, we were just friends. It wasn't about, they don't have to be, a certain religion to be friends. It was just that, we are friends, and it was just, all coming together. So, we're really focused on the religious aspect, but in some ways, it doesn't matter, because, we're just becoming friends. So, it's not a big deal, if you're a Christian and I'm, Jewish. And, that's just something I wanted to, point out, because throughout this, we've been talking about religion a lot, but we're just all friends, so that's, the main thing.
It was also with me, because I'm Palestinian, but I grew up here and I live here. I haven't ever been to Palestine or Israel, and so when I went to this camp, it was really interesting, me being Muslim, but then also Palestinian, but never been there, meeting Palestinians and seeing what it's like over there, because that's where I'm ethnically from, and then Israelis, and then Christians, because I didn't know much even about my own religion. So as was said by Eliana before, I learned about my own religion, I learned about other people's religion, I learned about my ethnic background more, I learned about the conflict more. So going there, especially for me, was a lot of learning in a fun way. And as she said, it didn't matter what religion you were, you just made friends, you connected, and at times you would just find out later, oh, oh, you're Christian, oh, that's cool, or, oh, you're Jewish, wow, I didn't know that. So it was funny seeing the Palestinian kids come up to me after I told them I was Palestinian, and they're trying to speak to me in Arabic, but I didn't know Arabic. I didn't grow up learning Arabic, so I'm now trying to learn it on my own, but that would have been something nice to have going to camp, being able to speak fluently in Arabic, but either way, you still, beyond language barriers or any of those kinds of barriers, you still connected with people.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm just wondering if, like, there are young people in my life that are older than 12 and 11. Are there, and you're older, but you've already gone through the process. So are there ways for older kids to plug in, even if they haven't been through the camp itself? Is there a mechanism?
So the first thing that this past March was the first time we had this Interfaith Youth Conference. And so as I said, the first couple of years, we were just trying to, establish ourselves. And we're the only American chapter that has a 6-year program. So one of the things that I've tried to do, I'm an urban teacher, by profession. And so one of the things, in order to keep it really interesting all year round, is we have a very diverse group within our own kids. We have kids from Dorchester. I like to say that in some cases, like the son, I'm thinking of Sana, like the son of recent African immigrants, Muslim, is not usually likely to be going to a bar mitzvah party at the Winchester Country Club. Right? They are as unlikely to be friends, actually, as Israeli and Palestinians. Right? And so we have a lot of different ethnic, because our Arabs are, our Muslims are Arab, Pakistani, African American, more recent African immigrants. So anyway, we've just been getting together a curriculum which we're sort of developing for the whole Kids4Peace, sort of piloting year-round middle school, and because what does it mean here, right? The kids are interested. Some, if they're ethnically like Iyad, if they're Arabs, if some of the Jews are more interested. Other kids are just, like they live in Dorchester and they're Baptists, and it's not their conflict, right? They have a lot of other issues in their lives, but that's actually not it. So we're really working on, so what does this mean? What are the transferable skills? We've been busy doing that, and so we're just starting to say, okay, how can we have a bigger impact than our own small group? And so we had this conference, we're plan to do it again, so that's one way. I think the potential is enormous. So for instance, in Boston, as a lot of you know, there's a very active, the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization. I know that Trinity is very active in that. There's no youth comparable, really, interfaith movement. The question is, do we want to become that, or is that, but there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of things that our Muslim kids are feeling beleaguered, right, between the ISIS image on TV and the Boston Marathon bombers. Like they feel like their religion is being so misconstrued in the world. So there's a lot of potential. It's a matter of, so we have one employee. We pay some people for a big summer camp. So we have one employee. The rest is volunteer. So there's lots of ways we can grow. We're doing a strategic plan now. Love more help and volunteers. There's a lot of potential, and it's like everything else in the world. People have to, step up and be willing to do it. Like I personally am not in a position to start a Greater Boston Interfaith Youth Movement, although in some ways I'd like to. So just to answer your question, there's not a lot right now, but there's a lot of potential, and I think it would be wonderful because I think there's a lot of interest among the kids too. Meg, you had a question.
Oh, I just wondered how in this getting together of the children and the parents in Israel and Palestine works. Is very difficult?
Oh, so that's interesting. So for the last 4 years, we've had the person who's led the trips from Jerusalem to Boston. Her name is Jill Levenfeld, this Israeli. And she and one of the parents from last summer, who one of the boys, who's Palestinian boys who came to us, whose father's a child psychologist, they've just put together an amazing, very purposeful 5-session, 3 hours each time, ability to talk about the conflict. Because Jill, who's like in her 50s, she was feeling like the parents get together and they're sort of friendly on the surface, and they talk about all the logistics about sending your child to the United States. But she felt like, especially last year when she was trying to lead the group, that there was all this unspoken talk among the parents. You know, I mean, they literally got together for an iftar dinner, which is the breaking fast during Ramadan, the week before they came, and she said they were just saying, at least we're suffering together, but I mean, they're all being, you know, having rockets falling on them. And now they're just like, oh, you know, isn't everything great? We're sending our kids to the United States. And there was just so much unspoken that she and this other dad, Palestinian father, who was, said, we have got to have purposeful conversations with each other, and we have to prepare our kids for returning to a situation where they can just be mocked and ostracized by others in their schools for what they've done, you know, because the situation is feeling so negative. So I've just heard a little bit about it. Apparently they did a whole training, and Jill and Bashar's father are leading this. So it's a tough situation. But anyway, they do get together. The parents have to come together 10 times before they can send their kids. But now that for the first time, they're really trying to have conversations and language both to support their children and to face the issue. They're trying to, as I said, make this sole alternative community. Because it used to be people had their kids in Kids4Peace, and they didn't tell anyone else. Like Palestinians wouldn't tell other Palestinians because they thought they'd be ostracized, or Jews wouldn't tell, Israelis wouldn't tell other Israelis. But now they have like their own friends, their own family group. So the get-together they had in February, it was supposed to be on Wednesday night, and there was a big snowstorm, so they're coming on Wednesday. They moved it at the last minute to Monday night. They still had 350 people show up. It's a lot. So there's a lot of people that are really committed to it, which is a sign of hope. Yes, you have.
How do you get the U.S. children?
How do we keep
How do you take it, just go along with it?
I joke that the first group in 2011, which is Ian's group, it was like if they were breathing, we were like happy to have them because their parents were like, you want to sign up your kid for something that doesn't exist and we can't guarantee that it's going to go well. So that was something. How did you guys get it?
Well, from my experience, one of my good friends from where I live found out about the program. I don't remember how she found out about it, but and she did an interview to try and get into the camp, and her parents told my mom about it, and my mom told me about it, and I was amazed by what kind of program it was. And like if I got in there, I was crazed by the experience I would get. And so I signed up for an interview or went on the website, and they came, they showed me almost this exact same slideshow and asked me a bunch of questions, and I don't know the rest, but I was picked for it.
Do you have anything to
Well,
add?
my brother did the program before me, so like he's the one who really like convinced me that it was a great thing to do. And I've had 3 people, like not that are all 3 Jewish people that I've known from my community and shared that have done it before me. And so me and my friend went in together because we were a little bit nervous, and we did the interview. Like it was with dogs. We all went in. We did some games, like to get us comfortable, and then we did the interview. Like mostly, I think it's just like to hear about it from friends or different people, and they like.
I have to say, Eliana had a very convincing essay about how she's a peacemaker in her own family, and she has a complicated and interesting family, and she was very convincing about her examples in her essay about how she was a peacemaker. We often take siblings, but it depends if we think it'll be good for them. What I have to say about the kids who want to do this, in general, they can't come with a friend. And so that eliminates lots of kids to start with, right? You can't come, because we're like trying to get as diverse a group as we can. We're not looking, it's small, so we don't want too, Christians, two Christian boys from the same church or something. We try to make it diverse. And so, but the kids who want to go, they're only 6th graders, and yet they want to do this. They really are not like your average kids who are like, I just want to play soccer or I just want to hang out with my friends.
So I want to do 2 things. I just want to take a moment to kind of formally close the presentation and thank you all, and then invite anybody who can stick around to keep asking questions and keep talking. But I want to make sure that before people dissolve and completely off into the next service that we have a chance to just say thank you so much to the 3 of you for coming and being willing to speak to us, and of course to you, and come and just kind of share about this amazing work. And hopefully something maybe begins to happen a little bit. At least we have in mind now some way of connecting some of our own experiences with other work going on, and it's really, it's pretty exciting work. So I just want to say thank you, and I want to have everybody be able to say